Alright friends, this video is going to be a little bit different than usual, but I feel this is an important topic as many viewers of this channel are interested in pursuing careers in healthcare, and this is an issue of public health. Now, gun violence in the United States is on the rise. It seems like every other week you hear about another mass shooting. Most recently, at the time of this recording, it was the shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, where an 18-year-old male armed with a rifle killed 19 children and 2 teachers. This isn't just an isolated incident either. Mass shootings in the US have become alarmingly common. According to the Gun Violence Archive, an independent data collection organization, there have been over 200 mass shootings or incidents in which 4 or more people were shot and killed, not including the shooter, in 2022 alone. According to data from the CDC, firearm-related injuries are now the #1 leading cause of death among children and adolescents ages 1 through 19. Firearm-related deaths now rank above car accidents, which have historically been the leading cause of death in this age group by a wide margin. Between 2019 and 2020, there was a 13.5% increase in the rate of firearm-related deaths, driven largely by firearm homicides, which saw an increase of 33.4% in that same time frame. The AMA declared gun violence a public health crisis in 2016. Efforts thus far to decrease gun violence in the US have not been successful, as we have continued to see a rise in gun violence over the last several years. This has left many wondering, why aren't we doing more? Now, in regular fashion on both this channel and on Med School Insiders, anytime we explore a controversial situation, to really understand it fully, you have to explore both sides of the argument in an objective manner. So we're gonna do the same thing here with the gun control debate, starting with the arguments against stricter gun control laws. The first argument is that the Second Amendment protects individual gun ownership, and the individual has the right to possess a firearm for lawful purposes, like self-defense within your home. As such, limiting an individual's ability to purchase a firearm for self-defense is infringing on their Second Amendment right to bear arms and is therefore unconstitutional. The next argument is that guns don't kill people, people kill people. Many argue that guns are just a tool, and if someone wants to kill someone, they'll find a way to do it regardless of their ability to access a gun. Instead of focusing on the tool that people are using to commit violent acts, many argue that our focus would be better placed on the issue of how to decrease the number of violent crimes in general. In addition, there is some evidence that supports the notion that gun laws don't deter crime, and instead gun ownership deters crime. The theory is that if someone wants to get a gun for illegal purposes, then they'll still find a way to obtain one regardless of whether it's legal or not. This is demonstrated by the fact that 42% of mass shootings in 2019 involved illegally possessed guns. Therefore, stricter gun control laws may make it harder for people who are wanting to get a gun for self-defense to obtain one. 2/3 of gun owners in the United States report protection as a major reason for owning a gun. In addition, a 2013 study found that 48% of convicted felons admitted that they avoided committing crimes when they knew that the victim was armed with a gun. In short, the argument is that if guns are outlawed, only the outlaws will have guns. Another argument is that background checks are an invasion of privacy, as they require the government to keep a comprehensive database of information on everyone. There is also evidence that supports that gun control laws don't work. A 2013 study published in the Applied Economics Letters suggested that between 1980 and 2009, states with restrictions on the carrying of concealed weapons had higher gun-related murder rates than the other states, and that assault weapon bans did not significantly affect murder rates at the state level. In addition, the databases that are used to perform background checks are not always up to date or include all of the necessary information to determine whether someone has a criminal record or not. As such, increased screening may still not prevent dangerous individuals with criminal records from purchasing a firearm. Gun control laws also don't decrease suicide rates. Japan and Korea have much lower gun ownership than the US, and yet they still have high rates of suicide. Again, lending support to the notion that if someone wants to take their own life or the life of another, then their ability to get a gun, or lack thereof, won't necessarily change the outcome. Current gun control laws are often aimed at inner-city, poor Black communities who are perceived as more dangerous than white gun owners, so many believe that these laws are racist. According to Statista, between 1982 and 2022, 53% of mass shootings in the US were carried out by white shooters, 16% by Black shooters, and 8.5% by Latino shooters. This mirrors the racial distribution of the US population as a whole. Next, limiting magazine size won't prevent people from committing mass shootings. Even small magazines can be changed in seconds, so limiting high-capacity magazines will not deter crimes or limit the number of deaths in mass shooting incidents. If we look at other countries with strict gun laws, they don't necessarily have lower numbers of gun-related violence. Mexico has some of the strictest gun control laws in the world, and yet outnumbers the US significantly in gun homicide per 100,000 people, people at 9.97 in 2012 compared to the US, which had 2.97. Mexico only has one legal gun shop, which only sold approximately 6,500 guns between 2006 and 2010, and yet there are estimated 15 million guns in Mexico. Lastly, those who oppose gun control laws argue that relatively few people are killed by firearms each year relative to other causes of death. Americans are approximately 22 times more likely to die of heart disease, 19 times more likely to die of cancer, and 2.5 times more likely to die of diabetes. As such, many argue that the firearm homicide problem in the US is largely exaggerated, and our efforts would be better placed on the other causes of death in the US that take more lives each year. In 2012, the US ranked 28 in international homicide rates with 2.97 gun murders per 100,000 people. Next, let's explore the arguments in favor of stricter gun control laws. The first argument is that the Second Amendment is not an unlimited right to own guns. The right to carry a concealed firearm in public isn't protected by the Second Amendment, as supported by the court case DC versus Heller in 2008. The Second Amendment was also written at a time where the weapons available were much different. The firearms available in 1791, when the Second Amendment was written, consisted of muskets and flintlock pistols, which could only hold a single round at a time. A skilled shooter could only get off a maximum of 3 or 4 rounds a minute, and even then, these guns were known for being horribly inaccurate. If we compare that to modern day, an assault rifle generally has 30 rounds per magazine, which can be switched out in seconds. A skilled shooter can output more than 45 rounds per minute. These guns are also stable and accurate at distances 5 to 10 times farther than a typical Revolutionary era musket. As such, modern day firearms are a far cry from what our founding fathers had envisioned when they wrote the Second Amendment. There is also evidence supporting that more gun control leads to fewer deaths. A study published in the American Journal of Public Health found a robust correlation between higher levels of gun ownership and higher firearm homicide rates. There have also been a number of studies that have shown individual gun ownership is related to an increased risk of being a homicide victim. In essence, there's a correlation that if you buy a firearm, you are significantly more likely to become a victim of gun violence. The presence of a gun during a conflict has also been shown to increase the chance that the conflict will become violent, as weapons used in altercations are often the ones closest at hand. In addition, a 2019 study in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine found that for each 10% point increase in household gun ownership, the youth suicide rate increased by approximately 27%. A 2016 study in Lancet states that implementing federal universal background checks could reduce firearm deaths by a projected 56.9%. In addition, background checks for ammunition purchases could reduce deaths by a projected 80.7%, and gun identification requirements could reduce deaths by a projected 82.5%. There is also data to suggest that guns are rarely used in self-defense. Of the 29.6 million violent crimes committed between 2007 and 2011, only 0.79% of victims protected themselves with the threat or use of a firearm. In 2010, there were 230 justifiable homicides compared to 8,275 criminal gun homicides, which equates to about 36 criminal homicides for every 1 justifiable homicide. In addition, none of the mass shootings between 1982 and 2012 were stopped by an armed civilian. This makes sense, as the average gun owner is not trained in law enforcement or how to handle life-threatening situations. If a threat occurs, increasing the number of guns may only create a more volatile and dangerous situation. Data also suggests that most guns used in mass shootings are purchased legally. According to a 2022 study by the National Institute of Justice, approximately 77% of those engaged in mass shootings purchase at least some of their guns legally. This includes the 18-year-old Uvalde gunman, who was able to purchase 2 assault rifles from a federally licensed gun store, which were later used to commit the mass shooting recently in Texas. In cases involving K-12 school shootings, over 80% of individuals stole guns from family members. The researchers also note that there are no federal laws requiring the safe storage of guns or federal standards for firearm locks. In addition, between 2005 and 2019, approximately 1.4 million guns were stolen from US homes during property crimes. Guns are often easy targets for theft, as they can be easily carried away and can be sold quickly for a high fraction of the initial cost. Gun violence also costs society billions of dollars each year, and stricter gun control laws can help reduce that. According to the World Health Organization, the costs of gun violence include legal services, medical costs, perpetrator control, policing, incarceration, foster care, private security, lost earnings, lost time, life insurance, productivity, tourism, and psychological costs, amongst others. Countries with restrictive gun control laws have also been shown to have lower homicide and suicide rates than the US. Switzerland and Finland also rank among the countries with the highest number of guns per person, but they require gun owners to acquire a license and pass mental and criminal background checks. They have significantly lower rates of gun homicides and suicides. In 2009, Switzerland had 0.31 gun homicide deaths and 3.29 gun suicide deaths per 100,000 people, Finland had 0.43 gun homicide deaths and 4.19 gun suicide deaths per 100,000 people. The US had 4.19 gun homicide deaths and 5.76 gun suicide deaths per 100,000 people. According to a 2016 study published in the American Journal of Medicine, the US gun homicide rates were 7 times higher than in other high-income countries, driven by gun homicide rate that was 25.2 times higher. For 15 to 24-year-olds, the gun homicide rates in the US was 49 times higher. Lastly, most people support common sense gun control. According to 2019 polls, 61% of Americans are in favor of stricter gun laws, and 73% said that more needed to be done to address gun violence. Approximately 77% of people polled stated that they supported requiring individuals to obtain a license before they were able to purchase a gun, and 57% said that they were in favor of a ban on the sale of semi-automatic assault guns such as the AK-47 or AR-15. Now, in conclusion, regardless of your stance on gun control, the reality is that gun violence is on the rise in the United States. We need community leaders to come together and have a productive conversation about how to address this growing problem. We need to approach gun violence like the public health crisis that it is, and start making strides to address it. Otherwise, we're only going to see it continue to rise in the coming years. What we've been doing hasn't been working, and although I don't have all the answers, I do know that something needs to change. But what do you guys think about this controversial topic? Let me know with a comment down below, and please keep it civil. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out this one or that one. Much love, and I'll see you guys there.